Morning, Gaz. How you going?
Very good on a very wet Gold Coast. Come up here to enjoy the weather after being locked in Melbourne for so long, and all I've got is, cyclone type conditions. And yesterday was okay, but today we're back to terrible weather, which is Wednesday. So looking forward to getting back to sunny Melbourne for a little bit before back for the Gold Coast for the Magic Millions period. But at least it is always warm up here. So
been a while since I heard someone call it sunny Melbourne.
Yeah, well, hey, the weather so far in Melbourne, it's been a little bit better than up here recently, and unfortunately, we probably need a lot of rain in Melbourne. So, to avoid our other nasty that we get, which is the fires. But certainly there won't be any around the Gold Coast or those areas for a little while, because at the moment you basically need to go out there with flippers on. I mean, it literally.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right,
there's
mate.
rain, and then there's big Gold Coast.
Welcome again to Horse Race Junkies, episode 6. Today, I think we'll talk about a little bit about what's happened over the year, which has been a crazy year for everyone, and for us crazy horse people, we're still hanging in there at a great rate. And you've had a good couple of weeks on the punt.
Look, December for me at the moment is actually above. Well, I mean, we always want to win more, but I've been having a very good, profitable month of December, which is good because the last couple of days especially, the last time I was in Melbourne, because I only just come up here this weekend, but there's been so many even delayed birthdays or whatever and Christmas stuff because we're only now just allowed to get out that it all sort of folded into one. So, sometimes you just got to go and do those sort of social things, get them all out the way. And to be quite frank, as a handicapper, pretty much, doing racing as my full time, it's good to do it now, get it out the way, because once we hit next week, the week before Christmas, I tell you, she rolls in, and then once you hit like Boxing Day and then New Year's Day, there's so many meetings because wanting to do provincial and country and also city, New South Wales, and have now picked up Queensland properly as a jurisdiction. There's a lot of meetings to rate and a lot of races to bet on. So that's the time you want to really just concentrate on it.
Yeah, so we're going to tip on Boxing Day, the 1st, the 2nd, and 3rd of January. Then I'm pretty sure it'll either be the 6th or the 12th. We're back to normal. The 12th is the start of the Magic Millions Carnival, or the 13th on the Wednesday, and the 16th is the big day. Then they have the huge sale on the 17th. So,
yeah, actually, all those things I think will be very interesting. I think it's still going to be very huge, but I think there'll be a lot of stuff done online.
Yeah, because
obviously they won't be having the large national buyers coming in and Asian buyers and even international buyers, because obviously they won't be able to get into the country. Yeah. I know that the Magic Millions fashions on the field has been postponed. That was going to be at Pacific Fair. So, every year I'm always up here, and they have the horse barrier trials down on the beach here.
Yep.
I think a lot of that stuff at the moment, just like fireworks on the Gold Coast, has been abandoned for New Year's Eve and in other parts of Australia.
Yep.
I think unfortunately, I think there'll be a lot of changes to areas around the big event, but Magic Millions itself is obviously going ahead. I think, do you know if there's a limit on the crowd?
Pretty sure there is. Yeah, because you've got to have the social distancing thing.
That's exactly right. So, yeah.
And talking about sales, I know the Karaka sales in New Zealand is totally online. They can still have agents and that go to it, local agents, things like that, but that's totally almost all online this year. So it shows you where they're at with it. But I like the Christmas period. I do believe you need to take a break with racing.
Oh, look, and it's good. That's right. But I mean, because I find that with racing, if you're going to do it, you have to be really fully in the groove. I can't just sit down and have a quick look or whatever else. I'm either fully in or not in, because for me to do a race, I have to do it properly or I can't do it. And that comes from every time I've ever broken my golden rules, the horses don't run my way. So, and I don't really take anyone's interest of tips or whatever. I like to do my full-on ratings and understand it all properly. So therefore, if I'm not going to do it, I just take the day off or whatever. And look, with the weather that's been, hitting at the moment, it's probably not a bad time to I've had a few days off, but am looking forward to getting back into it again later this week, and hopefully things do dry up. Although, I'm hearing that there could be some heavy deluge coming even into the Sydney area for racing for this Saturday. Hopefully we're wrong and it does come. One thing I was going to say is that Flemington, I'm a VRC member, has for the first time now accepting up to 1,000 people to go, but you have to be a member. That's good. You have to go on a ballot. The problem is for most people who are members, we actually, if we go, we will buy a visitor pass for our wife or that to go with us, right? You buy a guest pass, unless you buy the annual pass, which costs the same as a membership, which unless you go a lot, people don't do, and especially in the COVID year. So realistically, you couldn't get a guest pass. So I know someone was looking at taking his wife, and he goes, well, I can't go. You have to buy a dining voucher. So at the end of the day, it's slowly but surely we are getting 1,000 back. But the strange thing is, the size of Flemington, which, let's be honest, is probably the same size as the MCG. Yeah. The MCG for Boxing Day is allowed to have 30,000 people. So there's quite a few of us are scratching our head to go, how can you only have 1,000 at the size of Flemington, but you can have 30,000 at the Melbourne Cricket Ground? Right?
Yeah. That's like unfair in the way they're looking at it, because our industry, I think, promotes or generates a lot of income into Australia. Like it's regarded as the second largest industry in Australia, and a lot of people go, "Oh, how's that working?" When you go through all of the different parts of racing and horse breeding and the whole works, it's enormous, and people don't realise.
Well, and I think it's to do a little bit political, because obviously Boxing Day test is very sacrosanct to Melbourne, etc., which is fine, a bit like the Spring Carnival, but we accepted we couldn't go in the Spring Carnival. I don't have a problem with 30,000 going. I just would have thought that using a bit of common sense, since it is only restricted to members, they could have opened up some of the outer area as well to members and said, okay, it's now 3,000, including the fact that, we can have up to 1,000 guest passes, but only one per full member, so that people could take their partners along with them, right, for the day out, because you have to buy a dining pass. I mean, it's not like you can just go there and stand in the booking ring. That's not going to happen. So really, and we've all joined in good faith our membership again of the race club. So, those sort of things have to be just addressed. And I think it's probably, cricket may have better lobbyists than racing's doing at the moment with the government. But it's going to be a great time again to be able to go back to a racetrack freely, because haven't been since January, early this year, when I was at a meeting at Flemington, because once COVID came along, as you know, racing's done an amazing part to stay alive and not be stood down, which just hasn't had people.
Yeah, exactly. And it is. It's like, I was wondering what I was going to do with myself if there was no racing. I was thinking, Jesus, what can I do? It would have driven me absolutely insane. Because I spend 10 hours a day in here, and people say, do you ever have a day off? Yeah, you have a day off, but you still watch what went on at the end of the day. You still want to see, actually, was there something that went on? Is there something? Because you can't just go, oh, I'll do it next Saturday, I won't worry about it. Because of the way we do it, we have to be in the zone, 90% of the time. Well,
that's right. And for me, I'm and like yourself, I'm always updating my database. So that's right, I have to do the reviews on the races in the jurisdictions. So even in the ones where I haven't been betting the last few days, I'll still be doing the updates into the form and what's gone on. So I need to keep up to date with what's happening. So even if I may not physically be doing the pre-race to do the ratings for that day, I still have to do the post-race, because that doesn't go away. So, wherever I go with my laptop. So even if I'm going on a holiday somewhere, my laptop's there so I can continue to do it. As I said, I couldn't go away on a holiday where I can't get good internet. Internet these days is the most important thing wherever I go, because I have to be able to get that access.
Yeah. No, only because even when we go to New Zealand, we buy SIM cards and everything over there with as much data as we can get on them.
Yeah.
Especially because if we go over for a couple of weeks, we'll go and stay at Lake Rotowedi. Just so that's my real downtime. I go trout fishing and we stay in a house, but that's when I read all the racing books and things like that, and just sit and look at things on the net, and I just completely get it. But I really like going to those like Matamata racetrack and Rotorua and places like that, and I go and just meet the people there, you know, because if you walk and sit down in a place like that and you've got a laptop, people come and ask you what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, I love nothing better as well than country races. I mean, one of the things I want to be doing once, as we are now getting into COVID normal, whatever that may be, and hopefully it stays that way. Certainly, my aim this year, and I have been to most racetracks. There would be very few racetracks I haven't been to in this country, but one of my intentions is certainly to go to on all the circuits I do, go back and refresh myself again with all the key racetracks.
Yeah.
Because it's a great day out, but it's also great to go and just visualize and see those straights and everything else, because it does help you. You can see it off the map. You can see it off the all the charts we've got, everything else. But it's nice to actually be able to go there. Plus, it's good to have a great day out in those particular areas as well.
Well, I'll give you an example for me that really surprised me. The first time I ever went to Caulfield looks nothing in real life to how it looks on a TV.
Yep.
Nothing at all. It virtually looks like it's got a dog-leg corner, and it looks like the horses virtually have to be laying sideways to get around the corner, you know, at the top of the straight.
Well, that's right, yeah.
You know, yeah. And it's a strange place, and people go, oh yeah, Caulfield's big open. It's not as big an open as people think. Not, you know, you go to Flemington, and Jesus, you know, when I went to Flemington, I was flabbergasted by the size of the place.
I mean, you know, I've been to all the major racetracks floating around in our world, but I think Flemington is equal to any. It's an amazing racetrack, Flemington. Look, Royal Ascot is certainly pretty amazing as well, but I can tell you that Flemington is world class, and the facilities at Flemington, for the big numbers we have, are totally world class. It's probably I think we as Australians sometimes underplay it, and I've been to Randwick a lot and all that, but I don't think Randwick is in the same street as Flemington. Flemington's just got something special. And, you know, they've spent a lot of money on Flemington. They've put the new stand in as well, and the members stand, the whole lot. Yeah. It's amazing facilities. It seriously is.
The first time I ever went to Flemington, I pulled up on the train, and because I always, you know, I regard Flemington as the Mecca track of Australia. And I remember the first time I walked in there, and I only had a shirt and a suit on and a tie, and that wind was coming from the south, and it was just about cutting you in half. And I walked out, and I went, holy shit, I've been told about this. Fuck, this is cold. And I just come from the Gold Coast, you know, and went down there. And I did the first year I went there, I did all 4 days of racing. The Tuesday was the only day I went with someone. I just absolutely loved it. I had a ball.
Well, yeah. And look, Flemington, I used to go to all the Melbourne tracks when I was young. It's obviously now very different, because we just don't have the crowds going with the bookies or anything anymore. No. And that's a sad thing. And in those days, in the early days, we used to go there just like we now look online and see all the prices going different with corporates and Betfair and all that. But in the old days, the only time you knew what the real price was going to be was, you know, 5 minutes after the previous race, and the bookies went up, and you could start betting unless you went to a doubles bookie. So there was certainly that excitement and everything else, and every plunge or anything had to happen on track. Now, of course, the sad thing is the tracks are so boring from a betting point of view. I mean, there's no one in the betting rings. And if they are taking bets, they're probably taking them on their phone because people are calling in or whatever else. Yeah. And, you know, the sad thing is, again, I'm talking about, like I was saying before, about going to some of the country tracks. You know, the country bookmakers haven't helped themselves, because I've gone there, and while you like to have a bet on track, they're betting to like 140% market. So why am I going to take $4 when I can take $5, $5.50 on Betfair or at a corporate, and the bloke on track's betting $4, right? Yeah. And then they wonder and they moan why no one's doing anything. That's because if they were betting competitively at around 120% markets, then be more and more people wanting to come back again. So in a lot of ways, while I feel sorry for, and I think it's a terrible thing what's applied to the bookmakers, they haven't helped themselves. Yeah, well, it's like you were saying with the English racing. You know, the more people at the track, the more they need them. Well, English racing is totally the opposite, right? Because in English racing, you go there, there's 30, 40, 50 bookies, even at places like, even where the jumps are at, at Warwick or whatever else, those sort of places, there's 30, 40 bookies. It's in fact same Worcester, whatever else. And if you go to the big tracks like Doncaster, Sandown, or Ascot for the flat and those, there's 50, 60 bookies. There's different multiple rings. You have to pay to go into different sections, right? It's like Australia was back in the 80s. Yeah. So, you know, and it's clearly people dress up even on average racing days or whatever. It's a day out, and it's what they look forward to.
Yeah.
And, you know, the other thing that England does very well pre-COVID is that on a Friday night, they used to have the concert series. So I've seen people like Tom Jones, etc. After the last, they have a concert with quite often a big name entertainer, even from now or go back to the 60s, 70s type style, coming through. And that attracts massive family crowds and all that as well. Yeah. So they do it really well. And they really make a full show of it. And then you go to places like Newmarket, which is just, well, it's the home of racing. It's the first racetrack ever. Amazing history. And what people pay to get in and on very ordinary facilities, it's incredible. But they get the crowds. Yeah. And that's why English racing is very different. But that's because the bookies are also very competitive.
Yeah, a few more people in England, though, isn't there?
Yeah, well, there is, but it's they still go to the races. And the other thing is all the bookies don't play follow the leader.
Yeah, and
meaning they can go and
what it used to be like.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. You got opinionated ones. So you can be. I always take my mobile phone. I'm in England or anywhere, and I'm looking at what the price is on the fair, and it might be on the fair at 10-1. You can actually find a bookie in England. You can get 14s, and they're still betting each way, a quarter of the odds each way, which we don't in Australia.
Yeah.
So each way.
Used to, because I remember going to the Gold Coast, right, and I used to go to the track there, and they had a good betting ring for a lot of years.
Well, the Gold Coast, that's back in the days when the Merlins and all those, were really flying before they had Top Sport and all that. I mean, the Gold Coast betting ring in the 80s and 90s was always known as the place for the whales to get set. Yep. That's where they went. If you remember the Terry Pages and Out of This World and the Merlin, they all went and ended up, Bricknells and all that, they all ended up at the Gold Coast races.
Yeah.
Right? Because obviously, suits wealthy retired people to go and do the Gold Coast lifestyle. So they became bookmakers on the Gold Coast. And that's one of the things that, the Gold Coast is very unique in this country.
Well, that's where I learned the craft from a guy that was an accountant, and I met him on Hamilton Island. I was doing ratings way back then, and I was 20, 27, 28 sort of thing, and I was doing ratings back then, and he used to sit next to me, and I didn't even know he was a big punter. He sat next to me every Saturday for 6 months, and then one day he said, if I give you, he'd asked me, what price you got that at? Fucking that's 40-1, you've got it at 4s. And then after about 6 months, he said, you want to do a bit of work together? And then he started giving me some of his information. And Jesus, who was that big punting guy in Sydney that had white hair, but ran the whole shebang?
George Freeman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Dave was friends with him because, God, he'd get stuff on a Saturday and he'd get the top pick and 2 savers in every race, and the winner would be in 7 of the 8 races in his selections. Every set, Melbourne and Sydney.
It's there's legendary stories about what may or may not have happened in his time while he was involved in Sydney racing or whatever else. And we would hope that racing, the good thing is, I would say today, from doing form extensively in New South Wales, it's a lot cleaner.
Yeah. Oh, it's a lot cleaner now. Yeah.
Full credit to this. I mean, obviously they've got a lot more cameras and everything else down. They've got a lot better protection. But, again, the tales of the old, we don't know if it was true, not. Maybe they were just astute and knew their form better than others. But certainly there's, a lot of stories around it. Not every horse was trying at its best.
Yeah, well, these days, the ones that are careless are the ones that get caught.
Yeah, and look, I'm doing a lot of racing. What I will say is that the major plungers I see these days, and I see that they've got no form, I think they become a great lay. I see horses get back $2.90, $3 into $1.70.
Yeah.
And I can't work it out. I scratch my head, but all I know is that somebody or a group of people are losing a lot of money.
Yeah.
because they were really probably a $3, $4 shot, right? And there's a lot of people, unfortunately, who just follow money. And while that can be okay on certain ones, I can tell you, following money and horses going $3 into $1.70 is a very good loss-making venture.
Well, there was one on Sunday, and the one that we were talking about last night. That's the race that Spud won. See, I had Spud at $1. I think it was $1.55, $1.60, and the horse in that race, they backed the thing from $3.45 into $1.70, and it never looked like it was going to get into the race.
Oh yeah, so I can tell you that in this month of December, in the Queensland, New South Wales jurisdictions I'm betting, those plunges have done me extremely good for the opposite effect, where I've backed horses that have gone from 5s to 10s. They win. Yep. One horse that I really liked went from $6.50 to 15s SP, right? Because they've backed other horses off the map, way much more than ever warranted by their form. Yeah. And what I'm saying is the game's pretty straight because the right form horses won.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I like. When I've got something like that at $1.45, the next horse in the race is virtually 6 to 1.
Well, it has to be. I'm doing a percent. That's exactly right. So, I rarely see horses. It's extremely rare the way I rate for a horse to come up odds on. If it does, it will probably be odds on, but I won't be. I go by the old adage, odds on, look on. I'm happy to go down to very short in the black.
I use what I call an aggressive market. I've got two. I've got the normal market. I've got aggressive market. With my calculator thing, and I like looking at the aggressive market, but I always go and have a look at the real market and then match that up to what the bookies are showing me. See how that is. But I mean, with our selections over the month, I've had it up and down. Like Saturday was the worst day in win betting that I've had in the last 12 months. The worst day.
So, as I said, I was lucky. We had a social engagement that my wife, we're good friends of ours, having a special birthday, so we went to that, which was good because I got supplied not only by yourself but by a couple of other people. I do get their data sent to me, and I can tell you that no one I know had a winning day on Saturday. Looking at it afterwards, and I didn't do the form myself, but looking at what I did see and the results and what other people I know are usually pretty astute and win, they got killed as well on Saturday. So I was actually not unhappy that I probably didn't bet on Saturday. Well, I think it was a very difficult day.
One thing I will say, over November and up until December now, I've only done 6 trifectas in first fours, and I've managed to get 3 of them. And that's like the profit for that period, for a 5-week period, was 11,275.
That's excellent.
But that's the one part. But when I do them as a selections, I'm lucky if I give them one race.
Yeah.
I look for that one race where I know I can find the value in the race to make it pay. One trifecta paid 2,200. One first four paid 9,700. That was the big race in Perth. The one when the favourite, when Trekking got knocked over.
Right. Yeah.
Because I had Trekking as the rover with 8 other horses, and Trekking ran 4. So I didn't get the trifecta, but I got the first 4 in that race. And then on Saturday, I did 2 races and got the first 4 and trifecta in one of them, and that was a 3,800 first 4. And then the trifecta, the other one I was talking about, was a $2,299 for trifecta, which is a good numbers. You got to outlay to do it, But if you're only doing 10% over that period, for the small guys.
Well, these days for people, they all have the choice. I think every corporate offers it, and so does the TAB, where you can take, like you say, a fractional of taking 10%, 5%, 20%. So people don't have to take the full stake. So that's exactly right. So, with the value that you offer in those particular ones, that's an excellent part of the service.
Yeah.
But look, I think so. You're looking at coming back with Horse Racing Junkies. Will be back. The next one will be coming out about the 14th of January. We're going to be filming it
Yeah, 12th of January. So we got 12th of January on the Tuesday. We'll do it just before Magic Millions.
It'll be filmed. It'll be released for the 14th, so it'll be out for the Magic Millions.
Yep. So we got the smaller day on the 13th, and then the big day is the 16th. So I'll publish that on there, and then we always take a break over Christmas, but I'm doing Boxing Day, and I'm doing the 1st, the 2nd, and the 3rd, which is that weekend, which is Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I always do Boxing Day, and I always do New Year's Day, always, because there's so much racing.
Absolutely, it's like you said. There's having a look ahead at Race Australia. There's a lot of TAB meetings that day. I'd say Boxing Day probably equals Melbourne Cup Day for the most amount of TAB meetings, I think, on the calendar.
Yep. All right, mate. So
all right,
you have a very Merry Christmas. I'll see you anyway between when you're back up here on the 29th. Have a great time when you get back to Melbourne, and hope your daughter through the pregnancy nice and easy.
But we'll say goodbye to everybody here. Yeah. Bye, everybody, and see you next year.
All right, mate. Thanks, mate. Have a great day. Bye.
Catch you.